Football Friday edition of Birds 365 with your Mac guys, John McMullen and Jody McDonald. Joining us up now, one of the best in the biz being following the Eagles, reporting on the Eagles, covering the Eagles on the Eagle Beat. He's been doing it for years. He's doing it these days for The Athletic. Our buddy Zach Berman hops aboard with us here on Birds 365. Are you ready for some football, Zach Berman?
I've been ready for months, so I am eager to, as Doug Peterson used to say, get on the grass, right? I'm eager to see these guys in person. I've spoken to Nick Sirianni a few times, but I've never physically seen him in person. So eager to see him, eager to see Devontae Smith, eager to see John McMullen, eager to get the band back together, so to speak. So I'm looking forward to getting out there.
Yeah, it's exciting, Zach. We even get in the media house. I'm excited about that. I haven't seen it in so long. But a little inside baseball for people. But what other than the obvious, and Devontae Smith, I think, is number one. What are you most excited to see about on the field with Nick Sirianni? Is it just how he handles things? Is it one of the players? What are you most looking for?
Sure, and I go into it recognizing we're getting a limited sample size, right? We're not there the full practice, and they don't want to have the full team out there. But I want to see Nick Sirianni's presence. You know, I've always tried to remember during these past few months, there's a difference between someone when they're on kind of they're at the lectern or behind, or on a podium in a formal press conference, and when they're actually coaching the team, doing what they're hired to do. I want to see him on the field, interacting with players, interacting with other coaches, the energy that he has. How authentic is it when he's out there? How are his practices different than Doug Peterson's? How are they different than Chip Kelly's? How are they different than Andy Reid's? I used to cover the Giants. How are they different than Tom Coughlin's? Every coach kind of has their own flavor. And so for however long we're on the field, that's what I want to observe. I kind of want to see Nick Sirianni's presence.
Let me ask you about that relationship between the head coach and his staff and the interaction that you will be able to pick up on for the first time at I'm almost not willing to call it a practice. There's not going to be specific drills. It's kind of just going to be like get guys out there running through drills rather than actually working on plays or stuff like that. But the interaction between the head coach and the assistant coach is certainly going to be there today. Is there something that you look for? Does it need to be? Because let's be honest, the thing that matters is results on Sundays. And it doesn't matter. There's no given way to skin a cat that the relationship has to work. But there can be things you can pick up on that you think are good signs, will work well. What are you looking for, the relationship between Sirianni and the rest of his staff? Sure.
So I'll answer this not just today, but kind of the summer overall, or the spring and summer overall, is you can see the autonomy that Jonathan Gannon might have based on the allocation of time of Nick Sirianni. And that's something you look at the Eagles' previous two head coaches, for instance. Jim Schwartz had a lot of autonomy. Doug Peterson spent so much time with the offense during practice, with the quarterbacks during practice. Bill Davis had autonomy when Chip Kelly was, Jerry Azzinaro had a big presence too, but the way Chip Kelly allocated his time, you can see that. So in terms of interactions with the staff, where Nick Sirianni spends his time and how much time is he with the defense, whereas really Jonathan Gannon, the head coach of the defense. So you can see that interaction. You can see the interaction between position coaches and players. Some are more vocal, some are more stoic. There's different ways for them to handle it. But again, I don't want to overstate what we're seeing today, but certainly, it's much different when they're on the field organically doing their jobs as opposed to as a staged press conference or even phone conversations.
All right, Zach, we haven't gotten to talk to you since the draft, so I do want to get your sort of overall view of what you saw. To me, I know I was concerned about cornerback. Most people are, but sort of your immediate takeaways from the haul as a whole.
Sure.
And then I wanted to get your thoughts on your colleague at The Athletic, because it was interesting. Is it Adam Johns who covers the Bears?
Yes.
It was interesting. Ryan Pace, at least at some point, thought the Eagles were going up to get Justin Fields.
Yes, I'm glad you asked this, because the second question really ties into my first question, or the second answer ties into my first answer, I should say.
Right.
And that's this. You won't find anyone who would object to the Eagles taking Devontae Smith. Like, as a player, as a prospect, I understand you can have reservations about his size, but in terms of like the player himself, it's as uniform as you can find in terms of praise and approval for the pick. Where I would look at it, though, is how many years are you drafting that high in a year when 5 quarterbacks go in the top 15 and you're on the clock with Justin Fields there. Now, if they're right about Jalen Hurts, or if they have a plan B, or if they were not sold on Justin Fields, then all of those could be plausible scenarios for them not taking the quarterback. But if you don't have a surefire answer on quarterback, if you're passing on a prospect like Justin Fields, you need to be sure that either he's not the guy or you have another plan, because no matter how good a prospect Devontae Smith is, if the Eagles are going into the next year's draft trying to figure out the quarterback situation, and Justin Fields becomes a high-level quarterback, that's something the Eagles could live to regret. So I look at the first round, and the thing that I'll always look at, if it was me, and again, I'm not paid to evaluate these players, but Justin Fields, I think, is a better prospect than Jalen Hurts. I would have had a hard time passing on Justin Fields. Clearly, the Eagles were not in that market, and you could probably tell because when they traded back from 6, I took that as their admission that they're not playing the quarterback market.
Agreed on all fronts, except for one. Oh, you're absolutely paid to evaluate these players. It may not be direct, but in your writings, you do have to do that. You gave us 3 potential scenarios. I'm going to ask you, which one do you think is most likely? Either A, they don't rate Fields the way you just kind of stated you rate Fields. I'm absolutely going to include myself in that because I thought Justin Fields was the number 2 player in the draft. I thought the Jets could have taken him at 2. So the Eagles, through their actions, proved that they didn't rank him that high. They really have that much faith in Jalen Hurts that they think they found the diamond in the rough and he's going to be their quarterback for the next 10 years. Or they love their position of all the draft picks they have to make a move to plan B come next year, be it veteran or rookie. Which one do you think was the driving force in their decision by staying out of the quarterback market this offseason?
So I've heard John McMullen talk about this in terms of optionality, and I really think it's the combination. So it's having the option of either Jalen Hurts becoming that quarterback or having the option of acquiring the quarterback either via trade or the draft. In other words, I don't think they wanted to tie themselves down to a first-round quarterback this year. I think that was more the motivation. I don't think it was them saying, we think Jalen Hurts is going to be the guy. I don't think it was them saying, we're going to trade for Deshaun Watson, or we like the 2022 class more than the 2021 class. I think it was them saying, we're not ready to tie ourselves down to if you take Justin Fields, he's your guy for the next few years, right? Mm-hmm. I don't think after the Carson Wentz experience and with in a draft cycle where there was less information, and frankly speaking, they probably spent less time on quarterbacks this season than they might have in the past. And there's a new coach. I think they would much rather have the option of those 2 other things I said, of Jalen Hurts becoming the guy for you and you having a starting quarterback on a rookie contract, or you having those draft picks to trade for someone like an established veteran who is either a name we're talking about or someone emerges next offseason, or having the option to trade up in the draft next year. So I just don't think they wanted to tie themselves down to a quarterback this year. That's my opinion.
Zach, speaking of those established veterans, Deshaun Watson won't die in the connection with the Philadelphia Eagles. Diana Rossini was on this morning talking about it. We talked about Peter King, and that was more speculation. Your old colleague, Jeff McClain at the Inquirer, reported the Eagles have interest in Deshaun Watson if things get cleared up. Jason La Canfora, on and on and on. How much smoke is there to this buyer? Is that the guy? We all know the legal implications. We all know that has to be cleared up, but is that the guy the Eagles really want?
Well, I guess the way I would answer it is this way, because there's obviously a lot of variables there that go beyond football that need to be considered, and they obviously need to either wait it out or take that all into account. All things being equal, from a football perspective, this is an organization that is always going to look to upgrade a quarterback if they're not tied down to one person. Like I don't think that there is not a quarterback upgrade, whether it's Deshaun Watson, who we're all talking about, whether it's Russell Wilson if he ever became available, whether it's someone who could ask to come loose next offseason. The Eagles are going to be in that market. They've positioned themselves for it. They have the draft picks. The Eagles and the Dolphins could probably put together the best package when you look at draft picks, when you look at potentially young quarterbacks if they had to move on. So I would never rule out the Eagles from going after a top quarterback in the situation they're in. I don't think – I know there's some people out there who are saying the Eagles are hitching their wagon to Jalen Hurts. I don't think that. I think the Eagles are hitching their wagon to having options at quarterback. And from a football perspective, Deshaun Watson is like as he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league. And if you can get a guy like that and those other variables, you have the answers to them, or you're comfortable with them, whatever it may be, then certainly that's something that I can't imagine they would not consider.
Zach, since we're in quarterback mode, we might as well stay there. I know we haven't had you on in a couple of weeks. I'm pretty sure we didn't talk about it first time we had you on, but Carson Wentz in Indianapolis, his head coach has come out and said he doesn't believe that Jalen Hurts in the head of Carson Wentz was the reason that Carson struggled. He believes he'll get right back to the level he was at when they were tied to the hip here in Philadelphia. Good luck with that. For me, the Colts haven't really done a whole hell of a lot to add to the offensive side of the ball this offseason, either in the draft or free agent signing. It's just going to kind of be plug and play with Carson Wentz. Is Frank Reich going to cash those chips at the end of this season?
Well, I think the Colts offensive line that's a good group as it was. They obviously lost Costanzo, and then they signed Eric Fisher. Now he's coming off a major injury, so we'll see how that goes. But you're right in the sense that Bauer's MO is not to go out and sign a lot of free agents. He's going to trust his draft process. They spent a second-round pick last year on Michael Pittman. They have guys that they've tried to develop here. They obviously like of Frank Reich in his scheme. And I think what they're really hoping for is it's not just being in Frank Reich's scheme. It's just the change of scenery. I think there was a lot of baggage here in Philadelphia, not just the Jalen Hurts thing, but certainly the Jalen Hurts thing was one component. But all that went into these past few years with Carson Wentz. There, he was under a microscope. I think from his perspective, he felt like there was a lot thrust on him, and so I think it'll be a cleaner opportunity. I think they're just hoping that a fresh start is what Carson Wentz needs, and when Carson Wentz is right, there are a few quarterbacks in the league who can play as well as him. He hasn't been at that level in the past year and a half, and that's what the Colts are really gambling on.
All right, Zach, I want to shift sides of the ball with you. I do want to talk about the defense, and I want to talk about the cornerback position because opposite Darius Slay, we've talked about it a lot. The Eagles didn't go corner until the fourth round with Zach McPherson. You saw a trade. Some people speculated maybe Mike Hughes could be that trade pickup. He goes to Kansas City. Howie's talked about Ronald Darby in 2017. I think they're going to add a body. Where does that body come from? And do they absolutely need to add a body?
Yeah, so look, I'll give Howie credit in this. The 2017 example with Ronald Darby, he's absolutely right, because after the draft in 2017, and I will raise my hand here, it is a question that I had for him, for the organization. What are you doing at cornerback? During training camp that year, that was a question. What are you doing at cornerback? And they kept saying, we don't play tomorrow. And look, they made that trade for Darby. That's my way of answering that. I think that the starting cornerback opposite of Darius Slay is not on the roster yet. Now, perhaps they get to camp and they like McPherson, or they like Avonte Maddox, or they think Michael JAKIB is a hidden gem, or perhaps they make a move before then. But I don't think the Eagles are looking at their depth chart right now and saying, yeah, this is our group for week 1 against Atlanta. I think there is some wait and see to it. And I think there is some scanning the market, and whether it's free agency or whether it's trade. But I think they'll be aggressive at that spot.
And I think they have to be, but we'll see how it shakes out. But I got to say this again. I said it yesterday. I'll say it again. Keep referring back to the Ronald Darby. I know he was a cornerback on the team when they won the Super Bowl, but that's what we're staking our reputation on. The phenomenal acquisition of Ronald Darby.
Let's won a
look
Super
at the
Bowl
big
with
picture. His entire time here with the Eagles was nothing to write home about.
Well, no, I don't know if it's the player as much as the process there. Well, I mean, they acquired I think at the time he was 23 or 24. They acquired a 23, 24-year-old starting cornerback after the first preseason game. And so I think what his point is that from the outside, sometimes there's this idea that when you finish with free agency and you're finished with the draft, that's your group for the year. And him saying, well, that's not the group for the year. And he's, to his credit, he has been aggressive after the draft, during training camp. They've made how many trades during the past few years in training camp? Now, some of them are inconsequential, but some of them are moves of note. Howie's not the type of GM who says, this is my roster, this is my depth chart, we're going to stick with these guys. He will tinker if he needs to tinker, and I think he needs to tinker.
All right, Zach, we always have to bring up Zach Ertz because he's still here. So, I mean, it's May, where are we? May 13th, May 14th?
May 14th, yep.
May 14th, he's still here, June 1st looming.
Yep.
Is there any chance the Eagles just say, all right, when Zach just says, I'll play out my final year, go to free agency, or have the Eagles budgeted that money post June 1st? Is there any way that Zach Ertz is here next season?
Look, I didn't think he'd be on the roster May 14th, so I don't want to definitively say he's not going to be on the roster week 1, but I would still be very surprised he's going to be on the roster week 1. And I can't speak for Zach Ertz, obviously, but I think that he would probably prefer to be in a different situation. Look, the Eagles have Dallas Goedert here. I think Dallas Goedert's going to be featured in this offense. If Zach Ertz is playing out the final year of his deal, there might be situations that are better for him than this one, and I think he's probably earned that right to be in trade talks. I don't think he's a part of the Eagles' future. So I would still be surprised if he's on the team. I know that, if you're going to trade someone, you need a trade partner, and Howie, you guys know how he is. He doesn't want to let go of a player for nothing. So he'll hold out for leverage here, Howie. But I would still be surprised if Ertz is on the team week 1.
All right, Zach, I want to get your take on the running back position. Mm-hmm. We've got Miles Sanders, and then the Eagles have been at least somewhat aggressive in finding other pieces to the running back puzzle. They picked one up off the scrap heap, claimed on waivers. They re-signed a veteran guy who had been here before and will be here again. And they also used a draft pick, I think a value draft pick, 5th rounder, to grab a running back. We like your opinion on all 3 of those guys, but more importantly for me, start with, what does it say about Miles Sanders? That they have done as much with the running back position transactionally during this offseason. Does it tell us something about how they're viewing Miles Sanders going into the year?
No, not at all. Because none of these moves, frankly, were high leverage moves. I mean, Jordan Howard, there's no guarantee he's on the roster. A 5th round pick. I mean, you're talking about Clayton Thorson, right? Like they've cut 5th round picks before. No, I say that meaning like I think Gainwell's a good prospect, but that's if they drafted ATN, in the first, or if they spend a 2nd round pick on someone, it's a different conversation. I think a day 3 pick at running back is right in the wheelhouse of where you would expect them to invest. And then Kerryon Johnson, that's them being opportunistic. That's if Kerryon Johnson had a big market, I think a team would have traded for him, right? Because he's been available. The Eagles were smart to claim him off waivers because there's no guarantee in terms of the contract right now. And he's 23 years old. He was a 2nd round pick in 2018. I don't think any of this has to say, I don't think this indicates their level of commitment to Miles Sanders. But look, when Sanders was banged up last year, that was not a good group behind him. Boston Scott's he's had some nice moments here, and he's a fine complementary player. But you need, if Miles Sanders is down, or even as a complement in games, you need more in that backfield. They were bare last year there. When they were missing Jordan Howard in 2019, I think they saw that that was a piece of the puzzle that they could have used. So certainly having depth in the backfield is something they wanted to address, and I think they did it in low leverage ways. So I don't think that had anything to do with Miles Sanders.
I agree with that, Zach, but I would just like to follow up on 3rd downs, because one thing Kerryon Johnson can do really well, if he's healthy, and that's a big if, is pass protect. And that was not a strength of Miles Sanders. Either was he took a bit of a regression as a pass receiver as well. Do you think this team would prefer to have Miles as the 2 down back and somebody find the 3rd down back?
That's a good question. And I can't answer that yet with any authority, because there's as you know, there's still a lot of conversations we need to have with the coaching staff, and I need to see some of these guys out there. But yeah, I definitely think having a complimentary back or having more help in the backfield is something that would attract them. And if you just look at Nick Sirianni's history in Indianapolis, they used multiple running backs, and I think that will be the case here.
I'm going to make you look into your crystal ball and give us a prediction. You don't have to give us a number, but I'm just going to ask you to give us a off the top of your head name. Who's going to lead the Philadelphia Eagles in sacks in 2021?
Well, that's a good question, because this is a good defensive line. I would say I'm going to say Fletcher Cox, and it's probably better money to go with an edge rusher. But I think this defense is going to try to do much to free up Fletcher Cox in the middle, whether it's playing Hargrave over the nose, whether it's moving Cox around some. I don't think this is just going to be a penetrating defensive line. I think they're going to try to free up Fletcher Cox. They should, because look, they're paying Fletcher Cox a lot of money. Yep. They need more pass rush production from him. So I'm going to go with Fletcher Cox, but it would probably be a better bet to go with one of the edge guys.
All right, as long as we're going crystal ball, Zach, and these are later round picks, so I don't want to overstate it, but my eyebrows got a little bit raised when I saw Jacoby Stevens and played safety, and the Eagles announced him as a linebacker, and Patrick Johnson, more of an edge player. The Eagles announced him as a linebacker. Should we read something into that? Is Jonathan Gannon looking to do certain things in your estimation, or is that just sort of taking a flyer, projecting guys to move positions at the NFL level?
Yeah, so I would probably read more into that Patrick Johnson one than the Jacoby Stevens. The Jacoby Stevens one, as you know, that's the way the league's going. I mean, there were a few college safeties this year, the Florida State safety, the Auburn safety Sherwood, who were drafted as, and moved as they were drafted as safeties and announced as linebackers. And I think that hybrid safety linebacker type is something teams are especially looking for on third downs. But the Patrick Johnson one's interesting because I do think the Eagles are going to try to utilize that stand-up edge rusher, whether it's Avery, whether it's Joe Osman, whether it's Patrick Johnson, who's obviously a 7th-round pick. But I think you can see them use rush linebackers at times. I know this is not a group that has been a heavy blitzing team in the past. I think if you just and again, I don't know Jonathan Gannon yet, but if you just look at Mike Zimmer's defenses, I think the Eagles are going to blitz much more this year than they have in the past.
Zach, last one for me. And I love this question because I do it every single year with myself and anyone else I get on who's going to make a prediction on the Eagle season. I read your column in The Athletic, you and Bo Wolf going through wins and losses on the upcoming season, which, by the way, tell Bo when you talk to him, I'll give him 100-1 odds that the Eagles don't. No, 1,000-1 odds that the Eagles don't have two ties. 2 ties, he predicted. Hey, for yuck.
Yeah, I think he was trying to be funny, but yeah.
Yes, tell him I'll give him 10-1 on no ties if he wants it. I'll put up 10. He can only put up $1. There will be no ties. I know they just tied one last year. It's still not there will not be a tie on the Eagles schedule this year, but I digress. If you predicted 7-10 for the Eagles, probably in the neighborhood. John and I just went through it yesterday. We both ended up at 8-9. If I told you can't have 7-10, that you need to move one way or the other, either add one more win or one more loss, which tells you, are you a strong 7-10 or a weak 7-10? I'm telling you, you're wrong. You got to move one game either way. Which way you do it? Which way you going? You going back with one less win or up with one more win?
I would go back to 6 more than up to 8. And look, I might be wrong here. Jalen Hurts might be the guy at quarterback. I think the Eagles can be more competitive than people think because of their lines of scrimmage. You know, I think if guys are healthy, they have a strong offensive line, a strong defensive line, but you're really gambling on players over 30 playing like they've done in the past. And how many of those guys are going to be at that level? I'm curious to see. But I think the Vegas over under here was 6.5. And that's probably right. I would say they're a 6-7 win team. Maybe if Hurts is really good, they can squeeze out 9 or 10 wins. But also if Hurts isn't good, this is a team that could be 4 or 5 wins. So I would lean more toward the 6 than the 8 when I look at this overall roster, and I just look at what they've done this offseason in terms of trying to load up for 2022. That said, there are a lot of like prideful veterans on this team who might be making their last runs in Philadelphia. And you don't want to look, I mean, I don't want to tell Jason Kelsey or Brandon Brooks or Fletcher Cox or Brandon Graham, you go on down the list, that like this is a rebuilding team, because those guys are not in rebuilding years. But I think overall this roster is not a 10-11 win roster.
All right, Zach, I'm thrilled to see you this afternoon. Looking forward to getting some grass time with Nick Sirianni. I always say when you're here, Father's Day is coming up. Buy Zach's book, Underdogs, the best look at the Eagles Super Bowl championship. Before you go, a couple themes, because wins, losses, we know this league. It's not who you play, it's when you play them. So I don't care about wins and losses, but give me 2 or 3 themes from that schedule that you took away for the Eagles this season.
Sure. So first off, it's a light schedule late in the season. That's the big thing. I think that there can be some angst in Philadelphia in October going into November when that record does not look good, and there's a chance to really add wins late in the year. And in that case, I think one of the big talking points this offseason will be that they have that momentum carrying into it. And now there's some people who don't think that has a lot of validity. Every year is different. I know Doug Peterson genuinely thought the way they ended 2016 and the way those players responded to him at the end of 2016, he thought that carried over into the 2017 season. So I would say they have a chance late in the year to generate momentum. So that's one thing. Obviously, the late bye is very surprising. You know, you have a week 15 bye. I know it's a week 14 bye. I know it's an 18-game season or an 18-week season.
Mhm.
That's still an exceedingly late bye. And then the other theme of the schedule is the fact that this is a team that in the past 9 years covering the Eagles, I've gotten used to a lot of night games here. And the fact that there's only 2 scheduled right now probably speaks to what the league thinks of where the Eagles are. And look, Vegas thinks that too with the 6.5 number. So I think that this is not a team that the league is looking to showcase on primetime at this point.
All right, you got 6 seconds to grab a copy of your book. If you can get it in 6 seconds and show it, we'll let you do so. If not, with 3 seconds to spare, not a problem.
You can read it on your way to Vegas this October, right?
Yeah,
Underdogs, the Philadelphia Eagles' emotional road to Super Bowl victory.
Zach Berman, always a pleasure, buddy. You always bring good stuff when you hop aboard. J-Mac, will see you later on this afternoon. I'll see you when I see you.
Anytime. Thanks for having me on.
Zach Berman of the Inquirer, the Athletic, here with us on Birds 365. All right, coming back, Johnny Mac, Jody Mac. We got one more segment to do. Keep it right here on Birds 365.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.